Greetings everybody, this is Emily from A Pages in Ink, and today I will be doing my top 10 books that I read this year. Yay! My book fell. I know yesterday, if you see my video, you know I promised this, but yesterday I promised I would do 2 videos, one because it's Wednesday, it's Top 5 Wednesday, and another for my breakdown of books, or year in books review kind of thing. But the topic for Top 5 Wednesday today is Top 5 Books Read This Year, and since I'm doing Top 10 books I read this year, I figured that probably doesn't need to be 2 videos for it. So there's just this one. Previously had tried to record this video for you guys and realized that I had actually put them in an order, and when I was recording I was like, these are in no particular order, but they are. So I'm going to start with 10 and work my way up to 1. And in the number 10 spot is a book that, this is probably an unpopular opinion kind of place for it, because this book was really loved when it came out this year. And and I also want you guys to try to guess what my number 1 book is going to be. But anyway, this book I think was actually overhyped for me, because when I got to reading it, it was not as good as I thought it was going to be, which kind of brought it down my list because I had such high expectations for it, and I didn't really live up to it, which is interesting because a lot of people were like, this book is so good. I was like, it is good, but it's really not where I thought it was going to be. And that book is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. It's a good book. I did enjoy it, and I am excited for the next one. But there's so much, like, I also want to say the first half of the book was actually kind of boring, or like there were certain parts of the story where it was just really slow and boring. Like, the book is about a heist where a well-known thief named Kaz Brecker and his crew break into one of the most impenetrable prisons in their universe, in their world. And like, leading up to it was really kind of boring, and there's a lot of backstory. And I've talked about this before in one of my previous videos, actually I think it was the one yesterday, but there's so much backstory in this. Like, if you took out all the backstory, Six of Crows would be like this, which doesn't look like much of a difference, but when you look at this, that's a lot of backstory. So, probably is even more than that. And I told one of my friends that, and when she read it, she's like, yeah, no, I see where you're coming from. So that probably killed it a little more for me. Because I expect a heist to be kind of quick, and like there's this pressure on you that something's gonna go wrong or whatever. But I guess I didn't get very much of that. And there's this one point in this story, and it's not really a spoiler, but at one point Kaz kind of starts to lose it in a way, but not like go crazy. Like, he kind of starts to lose his cool, and at one point, like, passes out completely, and that's not something he would normally do. And I never fully understood why, especially because he had been that way since before. He had been in this room with a bunch of people. You'd have to read the story to know why that could be a factor. But I don't know. There's just something about it that I was like, this doesn't fully make sense. And also the plot twist at the very end that kind of made it into a series kind of felt really weird, because it seemed like everything in the story was resolved up to this point, and then there was this twist which brought it into coming into another book. So it was kind of weird for me. But it was still a really good book, and I do think that you guys should check it out, because Leigh Bardugo is an excellent writer, and I do think you guys will enjoy it, and you'll probably think that I'm wrong and that it's like one of the best books read this year. But I'm just gonna stop talking about that one now. The next one on my list, number 9, is a book I don't actually own. I got it from the library and really enjoyed it, and that was Shuttered by Courtney Almeida, which is a horror thriller story about a girl who is a descendant of Van Helsing who exorcises ghosts with a modified camera, and she travels with a crew, and even one of those people is It's a descendant of somebody that was really important. Oh, Bram Stoker. Sorry, I remember. Bram Stoker, the guy who wrote Dracula. So it was the descendants of Van Helsing and Bram Stoker working together. And it was really interesting. And the world was really kind of dark because there's like these dark, shadowy creatures everywhere. And there's like this... One of the main plot points is there's this like disease called Soul Chain, which like is slowly killing her crew. So she has to exorcise this ghost in order to free themselves from this like cursed disease thing. And it's really good. And the plot twists are excellent. Like, I don't know why not many people have read this book, because it's fantastic, and I really think you should read it. The next book on my list is number 8, and that is another book that I got from the library that I don't actually own, and that's Brightly Woven by Alexandra Bracken. This, I want to say, was her debut album. I could be wrong, but it's a like high fantasy fairy tale feeling story about a girl who becomes this wizard's like apprentice, and she is a weaver, so she weaves these like magical cloaks for him that strengthens his different powers. And by weaves I mean she fixes. But at one point she actually makes him his own, so he doesn't have like 12 different capes. Actually, I think it's more like 6, but you know, those can get really hot and heavy. And the world is beautiful. The story is actually really adorable. It's not as dark as a lot of the things that I read, and I really do think that it's a good read and you should check it out. It may not be her best work because it was her first, I believe, or maybe even her second, but it's still really good, and I do think you guys should check it out. The next book I have is another one that I don't have, and that's number 7, and it's Stitching Snow by R.C. Lewis, which is a sci-fi story about a girl named Essie who lives on this planet and stitches or programs these robots for her mining, or the mining crew that's on this planet. And this boy comes and tries to take her back to this place because it turns out that she's this long-lost Princess Snow, which isn't really a spoiler because I don't know if it's necessarily talked about. But it's just kind of obvious, at least for me it was. So maybe it is a spoiler, and I'm sorry I spoiled it for you, but it's kind of obvious. And they travel to a couple planets, actually I think it's more like 2, trying to stop this war from happening because of her disappearance, and like these people want to take over her planet, and yeah. It's a really good story. The more I thought about it, the more I was like, you know, not a whole lot happens. But at the same time, it was like enough that it wasn't boring. It was like, I don't know, you could feel the anticipation of the next move in every part of the story. And it was really good, and I do think you guys should check it out. The 6th book I have is The Coolest Girl in Cold Town by Holly Black, another book that I don't actually own, and I promise after 7 I own the rest of them. But The Coolest Girl in Cold Town is a paranormal urban fantasy kind of thing, / horror / thriller, about vampires. And there are places called cold towns, which are pretty much towns where vampires are allowed to live freely. And once a vampire is found out, they're kind of thrown into this town. And at the beginning of the story, she comes across some vampires. They pretty much killed everyone vampire, and they go to they make their way to this cold town because she's worried about going home because she thinks that she might be cold, which is what they call vampires that are turning. And she also decides to help this vampire get there for reasons. And yeah. It's a really good book, in my opinion. Everything is really interesting, like the way that this society has kind of not necessarily adapted, but has made room for these new creatures that normally people would be hunting with, you know, not pitchforks, stakes, torches, and pitchforks, you know, and like an angry mob. But it was really good. I did really enjoy it, and I do think you guys should check it out. Next book I have is a book that I do actually own, and that is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline, which is a dystopian book mainly about video games, but it's in a world where technology has taken over so much that everybody even works online. Nobody really goes anywhere. I think they even have like stuff sent to their houses, like food-wise. And there are some that don't actually have these devices, I believe, that are just kind of around. But the story is about, like, the main character is in this world, and the developer of this, like not the internet, but like the main technology branch, called Oasis, I believe, if I remember correctly. But he dies, and he creates this whole competition to find this Easter egg kind of thing. And the person who finds it gets to inherit his whole, like, fortune, his house, all of his things. And, so this guy has been doing research and doing everything because it's his way out of his life that's just not as great as it could be. And he makes a couple friends and gets closer to discovering this, and then there's this one point where he's like recruited by this place, and it turns out that they're not good people. So he's also trying to find the egg to prevent them from the Easter egg, to prevent them from getting it. And it was a really awesome story, and if you like video games and reading, this is probably something you should check out, because it's really cool and really interesting, and it really has like a video game feel to it, obviously. And it almost reminded me of like, part of it kind of reminded me of Dungeons and Dragons, only not tabletop, like in a video game. But there's a lot of games that you would probably recognize, and then things you probably have never heard of. And there's a lot of 80s references which may go over your head, but it's still a really good book. The next one I have on my list is actually more of a series than just one book, because I read the whole series this year and really enjoyed it. And I couldn't really just pick one because it was the series that made it awesome, and that's Penguin and the End of Days by Susan E., which I am really upset that End of Days doesn't match Angel Fall and World After. But oh well. This series is about a girl named Penguin in a post-apocalyptic world, where she's trying to save her sister Paige from the angels which caused the apocalypse, pretty much. And at the very beginning, when her sister's taken, she also runs into this angel named Rafi, whose wings had recently been cut off. Excuse me, sorry. And and she kind of recruits him in a way. She makes a deal where if he helps her get to the angel headquarters in San Francisco, she will find a way to help him get his wings put back on his back. And they kind of create this team, and their dynamic is actually really good. And at one point, I was like, if they become a couple, I think I'd be okay with it, but I really hope that they also stay friends, because they just have that awesome platonic, are demons and these scorpion creature things that they make, and there's a word that a lot of people are probably familiar with being a good thing, and that's Nephilim. And in this book, there are Nephilim, but they're not good things. But it's a really good series. It's really kind of dark because obviously it's post-apocalyptic, and then there's these creepy creatures, and like one guy, he kind of got left behind, and is probably why he kind of became what he did. And I guess understood that he needed to play the specific path in order to have things work out in the end. But I really kind of started to feel for him toward the end, and I was like, I'm sorry. But it is an awesome series. The characters are fantastic. The world is really cool, and I do think that you should definitely check it out. I love the smell of books. I'm gonna put that over there. Okay. That was number 4. I stopped counting, I'm sorry. Number 3 is a book that I read this year that at first I didn't like as much, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized, hey, this is a really good book. And that is An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir, which is a kind of a dystopian / high fantasy world. I know it's under dystopian, I believe, somewhere maybe, or it could be wrong. But it's a high fantasy world about a girl named Leia, whose brother gets captured by, like, the military, pretty much. She makes a deal with this group of rebels that if she becomes a slave in the commander's house, and finds information, or not finds, but like overhears and finds information. She's pretty much a spy. If she spies for them and brings them valuable information, then they will agree to help save her brother from one of the most impenetrable prisons that they have. She also meets along the way a boy named Elias, who is part of this like military thing. He's one of the descendants of like a prominent military kind of family. But he's starting to resist the life because he just doesn't want to be a killer, and some of the things that they have to do is really awful, and he just doesn't want to live that life. He doesn't want to be lost in this mask that they have to wear that kind of slowly molds it to their face until they can't take it off, I think. And it's really good, and it's pretty dark because some awful things do happen. And at first I was like, oh, it was okay, it wasn't that great. And then the more I sat and thought about it, the more I'm like, you know, this really is fantastic, and I do really think you guys should check it out. I'm really excited for the next one to come out, and yeah. Alright, number 2 on my list is a book that I wasn't too sure I was going to enjoy because it is primarily romance, but it's also a retelling of 1001 Nights. And I did really enjoy it, and I really even want to read it again. It's just, I was supposed to say it's magical, because it goes from 2 characters that not necessarily hate each other. The main female character hates the main male character because he is this king in a way, this powerful being who has a young girl delivered to him, I want to say every night, and right before the sun comes up, he kills them, and it turns out from the very beginning that it's something he has to do. But she goes and she tries to survive as long as she can, and she also kind of tries to figure out why exactly this happens, why this has to happen. Sorry. And that book is The Wrath and the Dawn by Renee Adhee. And it's really good. Like, I am not a romance reader very much because I prefer more action, and a lot of romance comes with drama, and a lot of the drama is just so dumb, which is probably why a lot of the shows I watch aren't really dramas. There is drama in them, but there's not, you know, like soap opera level drama, because some of it's just, I don't do drama. It's just some of it's dumb. But this book was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. I really need the next one so bad. And it's not just a romance. There's also like a rebel force that's growing to take down this guy, this king, and named Khalid. And Scheherazade, the female, is actually not really the cause, but in a way she is, because the guy that's trying to put this together is like her childhood sweetheart kind of thing. But it's really good, and I really think you should read it. If you're not a big romance reader, maybe give it a shot. If you can't get through it, don't force yourself, because that'll put you in a reading slump. But I did really enjoy it, and I really think you guys will too, so I think you should check it out. And the final book, the number 1 book, it is time to reveal it, and since I haven't talked about it yet, I'm hoping you guys can guess. And remember, this isn't my favorite book of all time. This is my favorite book that I read this year. So it's not going to be something that I've already openly stated. This is my favorite book, or one of my favorite book series, or whatever. And I'm really excited for the next book in this series to come out, I believe, in February. and that is Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. Because this book is about a world where silver-blooded people are aristocrats and royalty, and they have powers. And the Red Bloods have no power. They are the normal people, and they're often used as slaves for the Silver Bloods. And the main character, Mare Barrow, turns out that she has power. And because of this, they kind of try to hide her in a way. They claim her to be the daughter of like this long-lost aristocratic family, like the heir to it. And she becomes engaged to the second prince in this kingdom. And she's slowly learning how to use her powers, and she's making friends where she doesn't think she would, and she's also trying to help the rebel force, you know, take down the royal family kind of thing. The plot twists are excellent, the world is cool, the rebels have like an underground headquarters. One of the most prominent rebel people is a female who's just kind of badass. And I really, really enjoy this book. And I'm really excited for Glass Sword. I have one of the novellas that has come out. I don't know if the other one has come out yet. And if it has, I need to get it. But I only have the one, and I haven't read it yet. But Mare Barrow is awesome, and the story is really great, and I will sing its praises to the rooftops, because it's just really fantastic, and I really think you guys should check it out. I really do. Really do. Okay, so that was my top this year. Tomorrow, like I said, is going to be the top 10 most anticipated books that I read this year, or that for next year. Top 10 most anticipated books for 2016. I am sorry. So, did you guys know what book was going to be number 1? Probably not, but I do want to know if you got it right or what you thought it was going to be, and I put those comments down below. And I will see you guys tomorrow where I talk about the most anticipated books I have for next year, and I will see you then. Have a great day. I love you guys. Bye.